In March 1975, a time-traveling agent is seen marching into a public building in New York to stop a bomb from detonating. While he was disarming it, he felt someone pass behind him, causing him to turn around and draw his gun. He gets caught in a gunfight and only seconds are left by the time he turns to the bomb. While he was trying to isolate it in some kind of box, the bomb detonated and caused severe burns to the agent. Someone, who could not be seen, helped him grasp his time travel device and he used it to transport it to his employer's facility. In 1992, his employers are a mysterious organization called the Temporal Bureau. They operate in the shadows, preventing crimes before they are committed by sending temporal agents using a time-traveling device. The agent wakes up covered in medical bandages and is given a Medal of Honor, marking his retirement as an agent. But before he retires, he has to complete one last mission. Although the bomb didn't explode at a large scale as the bomber intended, the last mission of the agent was considered a failure since the bomber was never caught. The bomber would strike another day, and eventually cause a devastating attack in New York. Although the bomber kept changing the date of the attack, it always happened in March 1975. After some time, a doctor unwraps the agent's face telling him the surgery was a success and the grafts have taken well. But his face was disfigured and his vocal cord was heavily damaged. He looks at himself in the mirror and expresses his pain about being retired. The doctor tells him the retirement was not only about the injury he sustained but also about the long-term effects of time traveling since his time-traveling longevity is not topped by anyone in the Bureau. The doctor diagnosed him with an early stage of psychosis and mood swings but he didn't let him know. The agent gets sent on his final mission to 1970 and he is seen working undercover as a bartender in New York, which has gone quiet after the Fizzle bomber. A mysterious customer called John arrives at the bar and orders his drink. The agent tried to make some small talk with John but he seemed defensive at first. But after some time the customer reveals some things about himself. He is a true confession article writer with a weekly column in a famous magazine. He uses the pen name The Unmarried Mother. The agent recognizes him and shows him the magazine. The agent admires the way John was able to write from a woman's angle. John tells him it comes very easy to him. The agent thought it was because of John's relations to his mother or sisters, but John tells him this reason has a whole story behind it. The agent was very interested to hear about it after John was ready to bet on it, claiming it was the best story he had ever heard. John wasn't willing to say anything at first, but the agent pulled down a new bottle and dared him to tell about it. While this wager was standing, news reports came out saying New Yorkers were leaving the city because they feared attacks from the Fizzle bomber, which caused John to comment on the issue. He is bothered by the name the press gave him and he states that it was not fitting for someone who uses complex techniques to make his bombs. John sides with the bomber and tells the agent the casualties got what they deserved. After cautioning him about saying such things at this time, the agent turns the conversation back to the story and John begins to tell his story. On September 13, 1945, an infant abandoned by his parents was dropped at the Cleveland orphanage doorstep. The woman who found her called her Jane. When the doctor who checked on her asked her name. Growing up, Jane was different from the others. She was physically strong and possessed high intellect. Although she had all these superior qualities, Jane was seen as an outcast and a freak. She grew up a loner and had to learn to fight to protect herself against those who picked on her. Being adopted also was never an option since no one wanted her. When Jane is about to graduate, she gets a visitor by the name of Robertson, a man who works for Space Corp, a spaceflight organization. He recruits her to the organization, telling her that they are looking for girls who are not only interested in math and physics but also possess strong physical abilities. But the job wasn't what it seemed to be. These girls are trained to be sexual partners to male astronauts. Jane is present before some evaluators that also included some male astronauts. She answered all of the questions but some of her responses were not pleasing to the evaluators. In the coming months, Jane goes through a series of tests which include endurance, aptitude, and psychological evaluations. She passed all of them with flying colors and record-breaking scores. But she couldn't qualify for some mysterious reason which was revealed after the doctors performed a detailed examination on her. Robertson was the one who told her that she didn't qualify but he chose to keep the reason a secret. Jane believes her failure was related to a fight she got into with one of the women and Mr. Robertson doesn't tell her any different. He promises to appeal her case and give her another chance sometime. Now that her life in the Space Corp was over, she had to work and make a living for herself. She works as a mother's helper at a family's house, where she discovers a confession story, which she reads to pass the time. She did housework during the day and went to school at night, where she attended charm class and she wasn't good at it. Then, Jane's life took an unexpected turn. In 1963, Jane fell in love with a man she encountered in the unlikeliest of circumstances. He was rich and handsome and showed her kindness she had never seen. But the relationship didn't last. He suddenly disappeared after telling her to wait for him while they were sitting together in a public space. After that, Jane moved on thinking it was for the best, and focused on getting to Space Corp. She gets a visit from Robertson, who tells her the real reason he recruited her in the first place. Space Corp was a front for a secret government agency that recruits people with no family and past lives. Jane was delighted to hear this and decided to use it as a new beginning, but she couldn't use this opportunity because she was pregnant and the father was the man who broke her heart. Jane gave birth to a healthy little girl after a cesarean section was performed on her, which revealed the secret behind her mysterious abilities. After birth, the doctor told her that she was an intersex, a person both with female and male parts. She was shocked, but it was not over. Due to complications during birth, her uterus and ovaries were removed and her next life could only be lived as a man, and surgeries were required to complete this transition. While Jane was passing through all these events, Jane endured another traumatizing event. Her baby was kidnapped by an unidentified man. After losing her baby Jane and going through the surgeries, Jane officially changed her identity to John and moved to New York. This was John's story. Life was not easy for John after his transition. He had to learn to become a man. His past life kept him from living the life he wanted, and he blames his former lover for the tragedy he had to endure. After hearing John's story, the agent presents him with a proposition. He offers to get revenge on his lover in exchange for John taking his job and giving it a shot. John, who has tried everything to find him, didn't believe the agent at first. But later he is convinced after the agent reveals his real identity to her. The agent reveals that he knows Robertson because they work for the Temporal Bureau. He takes John to a room under the bar and shows him the time travel device. Together, they traveled to Cleveland, Ohio, on April 3, 1963. The agent prepares John for the mission and gives him lots of money while he explains about time travel, which allows a traveler to move up to 53 years to the past and present. John is confused by what he's hearing, but this is his chance to get his revenge. The agent tells John that he thinks the man is the Fizzle Bomber after John questions his interest in her lover. Once the mission is over, he agrees to take John to see Robertson and show her everything about the new job. So John was supposed to meet Jane and then kill the lover. But when John goes to meet Jane, he falls in love with his younger self. John realized that the agent set him up to be Jane's lover. Although he knew the relationship was going to be doomed after he left her, John couldn't bring himself to leave Jane. As for the agent, he deviates from his mission and travels to March 1975, where he confronts the Fizzle Bomber. After a shootout and some hand-to-hand combat, the bomber knocks him out and leaves him to help his other self, who got burned after the explosive detonated. After failing to kill the Fizzle Bomber for a second time, the agent is angry with himself because he blew his chance. Now there is only one thing left for him to do: to complete his mission. He travels to March 1964 and gets ready to be at the hospital, where he will take the self-fertilized baby of John away. He was the mystery man who took Jane's child. When he was about to enter the incubation room, he met Robertson. The agent made an illegal jump when he traveled to confront the Fizzle Bomber. This was a serious offense punishable by death, but Robinson lets him live to complete the mission despite the Bureau's strict rule against illegal time travels. The agent is hesitant to take the baby away from the hospital because of John's story, but Robertson tells him that it must be done to preserve the future. The agent executes the mission and takes the baby away from the hospital. Then he time travels with the baby to the Cleveland orphanage in 1945 to leave him at the doorstep. This meant the baby, Jane, and John were the same person. Now only one task remained. He traveled to June 1963 and arrived at the public space. John sees the agent and goes to confront him with a gun in his hand. The agent manages to convince John to leave Jane to complete his destiny, and then he takes him to 1965 at the Bureau, where he will be an agent of the Temporal Bureau. After the mission is completed, the agent gets to choose the time and place of his retirement, and he chooses New York. He made his last jump in January 1975. Upon arriving there, he tried to operate the time machine, but it was decommissioned. Although he no longer could time travel, he could still complete the one mission that had haunted him. Using the timer of the bomb and some help from Robertson, he picked up during the illegal time jump he made, he traced the purchase order. He follows the evidence and locates the Fizzle Bomber, who turns out to be his future self. The Fizzle Bomber tries to justify the killings, saying he did it to save lives from being lost in the future. He thinks that he had to be the villain so that the agent could be the hero and save lives. He also blames Robertson for setting the whole thing up, but the agent is determined not to become the Fizzle Bomber, so he shoots and kills his former self. The scars on John's body are seen on the agent, which means all four of them were the same person. Robertson was the one who orchestrated the existence of the agent, who was responsible for his birth and death in the end. With that, the movie ends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.